Hello, passengers, and welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License with service to Pittsburgh and the Pitt. We ask that you please fasten your headphones, secure your podcasting device, and remember that in honor of underfunded and understaffed hospitals, our show will be delayed by 8 hours today, and we will sit in pure silence, and you will like it. Unless you don't have health insurance, then get the fuck out.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Jeff Kurbis, joined by Rich Inman and Max Singer. How you boys doing today?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Oh my God.
I am going to, during the duration of this podcast, try to set the world record for most pierogis eaten in a single sitting.
Well, boys, we're not only talking about Pittsburgh and maybe Sheets, but we're also talking a little bit about HBO's new hot series known as The Pitt. But before we do so, and before we get in depth about a real-time ER experience, Max, do you mind telling folks what this podcast is all about?
Oh, Jeff, you can't say ER experience. There's actually an ongoing lawsuit.
Yeah,
that
we're going to talk about that in a bit.
Here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learn more about how these shows came to be and were originally made, if they're effective pilot episodes and making us want to watch more, if they can be made today. Go back and stream our old episodes from wherever you listen to podcasts. Check us out at YouTube and TikTok to see our smiling faces. And if it is your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard.
And Rich, what is your question of the week?
Oh, God. I got to know, because this show is ulcer-inducing, it is stomachache-inducing, it is stress-inducing. If you're working at the Pitt, how many minutes are you making it into a shift before you're crying? Or passing out?
Yeah, I think that or passing out bit is very important. So personally, for me, I think the crying, I could last a decent amount of time, right?
Okay.
Like, just be an adult, cry at home. But when it comes to the passing out or vomiting or something like that, if I see a bone out of a body, oh boy, we're done. We're done. We're going to talk about gloves and not as an accessory in this episode. And my oh my, was I just looking at the TV and like wincing a little bit and being like, oh no, like, do we have to show it again? Please,
I didn't look at the
no.
TV at all.
But Max, I'm curious about yourself.
I watched 60% of this pilot.
Just Rich was looking through his eyes, just
I was.
like this, like.
Oh,
joke.
man, he went podcast mode.
Max, yeah, go ahead, bud.
This shift starts at, 7 a.m.? Cool,
Yeah.
7:05.
Max isn't even getting through the waiting room. He's just like, nope, I'm out of here.
Buddy, guess who didn't know what degloving meant?
And Rich, I feel like you might break Max's record and just be like, I'm sick. I need to be home today.
Buddy, as soon as I walk into that triage area, even if I'm not working there, like, it makes me want to cry.
Rich hears one cough and he's like, fuck it, I'm out. Like, I don't need an employment.
Rich saw the line to check in and walked out.
Well, Rich, thank you so much for that question of the week. Let's talk a little bit more about the Pitt. And we're going to start off with a quick synopsis. The daily lives of healthcare professionals in a Pittsburgh hospital as they juggle personal crises, workplace politics, and the emotional toll of treating critically ill patients, revealing the resilience required in their noble calling. Which, yeah, I think that is a really solid description, maybe a little bit long. I would not call it a brief synopsis, but Max, can you tell us a little bit more about how this show got made?
Today, we are talking about the pilot episode of The Pitt titled 7 a.m., which originally aired on January 9th, 2025 on Max. We're talking about the show's creator, R. Scott Gemmill, a bit more today. A veteran of primetime dramas and procedurals, Gemmill joined the staff of JAG in its first season and spent 4 seasons as a story editor and writer. He served as a writer and producer on ER, twice nominated for Best Drama Series. Since its 8th season, he serves as the showrunner on NCIS. Today's show is developed by Gemmill along with fellow ER alum John Wells for Warner Brothers TV. The series was sold to Max, who gave it a direct-to-series order, wanting to experiment with network-style procedurals on the streamer. Initially, the show was set up to be a 12-episode season, a 12-hour day mirroring a hospital shift. But in development, chairman of HBO and Max Content, Casey Bloys, wanted more. While other shows were shrinking their orders, Bloys upped The Pitt to 15 off the bat. To make it feel even more like a traditional network show, they made the decision to have episodes added at 9 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays rather than at midnight as streamers often do. But it's not just the release schedule that makes The Pitt feel like an old-school linear show. Production began in March 2024 with ER alum Noah Wale attached to star, with filming set in Los Angeles. While other productions as of late have ballooned into tens of millions per episode, reports say The Pitt comes in at just over $4 million per episode. This isn't to say the production has been without hiccups. The producers have actually been sued by the estate of Michael Crichton, author and creator of ER, arguing The Pitt was an unauthorized reboot of ER. As of February 25th, a judge has allowed the estate to pursue its lawsuit.
Oh boy. I mean, wouldn't any medical show be like, if it's set in a hospital, like, could Michael Crichton sue the people who produce Scrubs, or like what you also didn't invent a hospital drama?
Well, like, I sort of, we have to approach this from two sides, right? Maybe there's evidence that was like, oh, ER was going to go from a Chicago hospital to just a hospital or a 24-hour sort of thing, right? And that will happen in Discovery, sure. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, that is the dumbest fucking thing in the world. And I don't want to, like, not to be rude, but like, you show an ER, you better be careful when you have a camera around a hospital, because boy, oh boy, is there going to be a lawsuit coming your way saying you're trying to reprise ER.
It feels like if Elton John decided to sue every band who made a song with a piano in it. You know what I mean?
If you say the word Yellow Brick Road, you get a letter from a lawyer. Like that. That's what...
Okay, so I'm very curious now, because this is I want to say our third medical drama, if maybe more. What do you think is the allure for the human condition that brings us to so many medical dramas? Because there are so many.
Max, go for it.
I think it's a combination of things. I think as a procedural, it works so well for a case of the week format. Mm-hmm. It's a thing where you can make it so self-contained. I think it's real heroes. I think people respond well to doctors and medicine because it's something that we deal with in our own lives and we have interactions with, and it's a world where, like, you just inherently have to see people be good at their jobs, which makes for good TV. And I think that we're going to just continue to see twists on that. I mean, medical shows have been around for years.
Like, as long as the TV, as long as like broadcast TV,
as long
has
as
been
there's
around.
been broadcast TV, there's been doctor shows. It feels like, and this is just the latest iteration of that.
And it, as much as a procedural, I think that one of the things that people like when they're watching TV is something that doesn't replicate their real everyday life. Being a doctor, getting to the point where you are a doctor in a hospital is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Multiple tests. You have to go through years and years of school. You have to be able to, at many instances, the drop of, at any drop, be able to say, hey, this is what's wrong. Right. And to some people, like myself, where sometimes I forget the code to certain computers and stuff, I'm like, wait a minute, you just know that? That's amazing. Like, how did you do that? So being able to take people out of their everyday and put them into the life of anyone else, it's why sci-fi is so popular as well. Like, you like the idea of what is in existence that does not mimic mine.
But those two things scratch different interests, I feel like, where sci-fi is, there's inherently high stakes that don't feel realistic, and so there's like a fun, fantastical element. With medical shows, there's inherently high stakes that do feel grounded and real, and so it's like two different itches you can scratch depending on like what you're looking for.
It is constant life or death stakes, so that makes a lot of sense. Do you think there's like a morbid curiosity aspect of it too, of just like, oh, this is what's inside all of us, like, you want to see gruesome things happen to people? I don't know if that's like it too.
Yeah, and I also think, think of, you have your main cast, you can bring in that case of the week and become extremely emotionally attached to said case of the week, and
Totally.
that's a really fun writing exercise, right? Of like, cool, there's this medical, in the case of Grey's Anatomy, mystery, or there's this very common occurrence, like some of the things that we see on the Pitt, and we're going to dive into it, have you be attached to this person, and then see what happens next. Well, let's dive into the Pitt a little bit more and talk about this show. And I think one of the things that this show does is, one, beautiful shots opening of Pittsburgh, but this show has a lot of major themes. And rather than go in real time like like we have done on some shows, it's a little bit more realistic of us to talk about some of the things that we liked, themes that we liked, or things that really stood out to us on this pilot. So, Max, you look like you have something to say.
The Pitt opening feels like it is plucked out of 20 years ago, and I mean that as such a compliment. We begin with Starbucks coffee shop rock, B-roll footage of the bridges and rivers of Pittsburgh as we clock in for a shift at this hospital, and we follow this protagonist of Dr. Robbie, played by Noah Wale, an ER alum. And apart from him listening to music in AirPods, this feels like anything from the 90s or 2000s. And I think that the Pitt wants you to know that what we are doing is kind of throwback TV in a way. It harkens back to a certain era, and it lets you know you are on a streamer. You may have just watched The White Lotus. You may have been binging House of the Dragon, but we can also do this thing that feels like soup. It was the most comforting thing I could think of.
Oh, that's good.
Soup.
Rich, I mean, as far as this intro goes, do you get that sense of nostalgia, or maybe do you get a little bit something else from it?
Oh, you mean when we open this pit up? Yeah. I mean, personally, it reminds me of, and not to add fuel to any lawsuits withstanding, it felt very much like when my mom would watch ER in the 90s. Like, it was not, it did feel a very similar sense of like, because the hospital just feels like, aside from the actual technology involved and the addition of COVID to the plot lines of this show, it's pretty standard practice. Like, it is normal for a hospital to feel like it's taken out of time, because it's never ending. They don't close the doors don't have locks. Like, it's not it is very much a if it feels like it could happen now in 2025, it could have happened in 1995, could have happened in 1975. It's all very similar. The only upgrades really are the technology.
Well, I want to go off of that point, right? Like the idea that the upgrades are the technology. It's very similar. It's very much the same. But why is this show different is, I think, something that is important to talk about, not only in the sense of how it was filmed and what it's supposed to replicate, but also why is this day different than every other day?
Say it with me, baby. 2 words: linear time. Let's go.
And I think that's an interesting idea, right? We'll talk a little bit more about pacing, but I want to dive into why this day is different than every other day, because Rich, you sort of mentioned it's a hospital, it's the same, but today's an anniversary. It's the anniversary, the death of a mentor of Robbie, or Dr. Michael Rabinovich, the only Jewish name that we will say on this podcast about this pilot. But as far as it's almost given to us in an air of mystery of like, hey, this is something that happened, but also here's another thing that happened. We have all of these new doctors on the floor, medical students on the floor as well. And Max, as far as compelling, is that giving you a sense of, okay, I know what's happening and why we're here?
Well, I think it's truly that. It's what's happening. The Pit lays out all the rules of its game super quick for you. We get a title card saying hour 1, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. So even if you don't know what the thing about this show is, you get it off the bat. We hit you with lines like, is the hospital for sale? Are you sure you're cool being here today? If you need to talk, explaining Dr. Adamson's death and why Robbie always, or not explaining why he takes it off, but that he has historically for the last 4 years taken it off. And then we get things like the med students are starting today. They say a line about when this one patient wakes up, God help us all. We're getting things that are going to happen in the future laid out in the beginning of this episode. We're not talking about them too much though, but like we're giving you hints of like, that's going to be a plot point later this season. This is going to be a thing that we're going to see over the course of the year. This is going to come into play later. And we do all of this really sharp, really quick world building that allowed me to feel like I knew what this was going to be for its entire season. I knew what I was getting into. But there's also enough in this pilot that feels standalone. I think we'll talk about a little bit more too. I felt like I could just watch this episode and it never felt like a 10-hour movie to me.
Yeah.
And that's where the Pitt's most effective.
Yeah, I mean, so in my notes, I broke this down as what gave us exposition, which is Mel's first day. She joined us from the VA hospital. The intern rounds, or like the medical student rounds, that handles almost all the exposition you get. Like, you get a little bit of an understanding of like what the living dead are, quote unquote. You get an understanding of the Kraken. You get an understanding of why they do certain things throughout. And then finally style notes, which to add on to Max's point, like, I think what feels so nice about this show, and it feels very engaging, is that yes, it's super fast, but also it moves at regular time where you don't feel whiplash and you don't feel bored. So it is like, it, in the grand scheme of how many people are coming in through triage, there's I mean, I wrote down, I mean, there had to have been at least, I think, like 17 people that they saw throughout this entire episode.
Yeah.
And but it still feels slow in between those. And I think the real-time aspect of it feels very nice in that way.
The Pitt also knows when to rest. It has its foot on the gas, and you keep moving. You keep getting little exposition primers on who certain people are in different desks of the hospital. We get these little beats as we do rounds. But it also knows when to sort of drop that tension and give you a little bit of like levity and let you breathe for a moment. When they're asking the interns questions and Mel gets one right and she lets out a little yay, that's a moment where you as an audience can like breathe and reset. And the Pitt's really good about doing that, where it's go, 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 go. And just when you're starting to feel a little tired, you get something like a yay, you get a little joke, you get maybe a case of the week that has a little bit of silliness to it that just sort of lets you like relax and recharge for the next big thing they're going to throw at you.
Yeah, I have in my notes that the pacing of this show is very, very intentional in that it is supposed to be anxiety inducing. There are supposed to be moments in this show where you are like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then like someone, Dr. Santos makes a joke or gives a nickname or like, you know, calls you Crash. And then you're like, oh, that person fucking sucks. But like also I needed that. I need the moment where a doctor is contemplating jumping off of a roof to be followed with a doctor or resident touring medical students through the hospital so that we have a break of like, oh, that guy was really just like sitting there thinking like, what if I jumped? And then it's like, oh, here's a joke. Right. And I guess for you too, as we look at this as a pilot, what do you think about a pilot having that heavy hand of anxiety-inducing moments? Is that something where you're like, good choice for the first episode, or maybe like, hey, give me a shot, give me some exposition before you make me want to consider having a drink?
Works 100% for me. I think that it's really good for world building. I think it sets up exactly what the tone of this show is going to be. I think we get just enough into people's personalities and what they're dealing with, you know, good, bad, everything in between, that makes us want to know more about them without spending too much time. And it also, by the end, feels like we're setting up a season as a whole while still being a self-contained episode. That's something that I think the best TV dramas do, and it's a thing that we've moved away from in favor of the streamer model of everything is just one long story. The cutoff points are just kind of made for you to hit next episode. It's meant to be done as quickly as possible. And this is meant to be, we go, 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 and then we rest for a whole week so that you come back next Thursday at 9 o'clock Eastern and want to do it. And it's everything in between of like high stakes, life or death medical, but also Gloria, the chief medical officer, writing Robbie saying, you need to stop calling it the Pit. It's like really insulting to do that. Like you get everything in between.
I think, and if anyone listening to this episode is an aspiring writer, the character that Noah Wale plays is dripping charisma from every end. And there is something so unique to the, let's say, the first responders, special forces type TV shows. So it's him. It's Mariska Hargitay in SVU. It is someone who has seen it all. They can handle anything that's coming at you. He actually he takes a lot of the stress out of this show entirely. Like, it would be way too anxiety inducing if we didn't have Noah Wale running around being like, don't jump off the roof on my shift. Hey, I think this person might kill some of his classmates. Let me just go talk to him. Like, it is handling stuff with such ease and charisma, and like, you just want to only listen to him the entire show.
And not to add fuel to a lawsuit fire, but I mean, like, they got the perfect guy to do that, right? If we go back in time to ER and look at the type of character he played on that show. I want to bring up something that I think is really well done on this show in the concept of a realistic workplace chemistry. Because boy, oh boy, do we have a lot of different characters on this show, and we have a lot of different personalities. And I think one of the things that I appreciate the most is seeing how different doctors or different people within a hospital go about care and go about solving problems. And I'm curious for the two of you, if there's, we talked a little bit about how Noah Wale is almost like the savant. He knows, he's been in the situation, he's been in the game for so long that he can just see a case and be able to diagnose it nearly immediately. But was there another doctor or maybe resident or medical school student who you were like, oh, wow, I thought that was a really interesting choice that maybe I haven't seen in a medical drama before?
I don't think anything's really come across my plate that I haven't seen in an episode of Grey's Anatomy or ER or anything like that, in terms of how they play off of each other. Like, you know, the interns / students are going to clown on each other. They're going to take bets on who's going to actually make it through a shift. They go through that all the time in Scrubs. It's like a pretty consistent plot point in Scrubs. I think what drove me a little nuts was how Noah Wile's character with his relationship with Dr. Heather is like not even remotely explored at all, but they keep giving like nonverbal hints at like something's different here. Something's happening. Like, Dr. Heather's clearly pregnant, and it is like, you can't tell. It's like, is it Noah's baby? Is it like, did they used to date or something like that? It just like, I think at a certain point that became a little too much for me, of just like when are they going to get to the fireworks factory?
But see, I didn't want everything explored in that. That for me, that's the thing that you have 14 other episodes to get to this season. Like, I just need to know that there's something going on there that I want to explore later on. Kind of to Rich's point, though, are there brand new archetypes that I've never seen before on TV? Absolutely not. But are there really fun, clear, and concise one-liners to explain each of these characters, like, at their core? Absolutely. Dr. Whitaker is like the small-town farm boy who's now in the big city of Pittsburgh. Dr. Cassie McKay is sort of like the kind of like brash, I think she's like the smart talker one. She talks about being able to get $30K for a kidney for Dr. Whitaker, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. You have Dr. Victoria Giovanni, who is the daughter of one of the maid surgeons upstairs. Actually, on that note, though, I love how we refer to them having rounds at other places before they get to emergency.
Right.
I like how we talk about upstairs as this mysterious place. I like that the Pit is our main setting, but we know the world has so many other departments, and we know that we're going to see how those people interact, but they don't tell you. We need to tell you all of them right now. Upstairs feels like this crazy, mysterious place, and they're able to do that so efficiently by just bringing down someone's mom.
I'm going to say something. Oh, go ahead,
sorry.
Rich.
Do you think that this is the smallest footprint show that we've ever done? Because the entire show takes place within about 1,000 square feet.
I mean, yes and no, because there's a really interesting scene in the show, if you choose to watch it, where there is, we see this boy who might be troubled, and then Dr. Robbie just sort of like stops once he leaves the exit. Like he can't run across the street or something like that. And that's where I agree with you that like they've intentionally made this world small. But to Max, to your point, I'm going to say something that might seem a little bit weird, but that realization that there are levels to this, right? There are different parts of the hospital that we aren't aware of, like where they do surgery, the ICU, all of that sort of stuff, where it reminds me of Snowpiercer in a little bit of a way, right? Like in the beginning of Snowpiercer, the movie, you only are introduced to the back of the train, right? The lowest class, the people who are lucky that they live on the train. And slowly throughout that movie, you are introduced to different levels. And while this show is the Pit, I think that there is a opportunity to sort of allow us to evolve, allow us to expand if it does justice to the story. If it does not do justice to the story, then I don't want more. I just want to stay in this place where we have that realistic appreciation for what the doctors and the nurses and the residents and everyone goes through when they have their shift.
I like the comparison point.
One thing that I do want to bring up, a character that I really like, is I love when I see this show has been called by a lot of people as one of the most realistic depictions of an emergency room that has ever happened. There's a lot of doctors who have gone on to say, like, yeah, I remembered I had like that PTSD of watching this and being like, holy shit, this reminds me of when I did that round. The idea of when you have that chaos, I love when we have characters who can bring us back and center us and allow us to feel calm. And Dana Evans, the nurse, the orderly, who is played by Katherine LaNasa, is fantastic in this. There is just something about her presence when she comes in that I was just instantly like, yeah, if we want to calm down a little bit, she's going to walk into the room, say like, hey, you need to be doing this. And then we're going to take a breath all together and be like, all right, on to the next one.
She's the Bill Belichick to Noah Wile's Tom Brady.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean,
that's fighting words in Pittsburgh, man.
This is a procedural of sorts, right? Even though it is a real-time depiction of a hospital, we do have cases or we do have emergencies that we are here to deal with in the emergency room. So I think to do this show justice, I would like to ask the both of you of what was your favorite case that you saw, or what was a case that you were like, wow, this is super interesting and I need to talk a little bit more about it?
That's a great question. I mean, I can jump in with my man Louis having a 420 alcohol percentage. That's so insane that they all acknowledge it would have killed any one of them long before it reached that point. But 420 is like I don't know, it's like a breakfast for him, I guess. That man was so cheerful. Noah Wile's character was so calm with him and so jubilant, and it was just like, hey, didn't even tell him to cut down on drinking, because it's like, we'll see you again.
No, he's a frequent flyer. He's gonna be here. He's gonna be here tomorrow.
I know that's just kind of like the goofiest one where all they had to do was like put him in a chair and give him lorazepam, but like I thought that one was the funniest.
Which I don't want to be a product placement conspiracy theorist here, but the grip that Big Pharma has on HBO right now, with its two biggest shows making frequent references to lorazepam, the White Lotus and the Pit have to be getting sponsored by Big Pharma. I want to look into it. We're diving down this rabbit hole. There's just so much lorazepam on my TV right now. Drug that 6 weeks ago I thought was made up for the White Lotus.
Look, it's like basically like Valium. It's like that's what it is. It's it's a similar thing to like Xanax, but there's generics. You can get a generic of lorazepam. Just it's not just GSK or whatever.
Yeah. Max, what about yourself? Was there?
I want to kick it to a new segment I call Jeff Kerbis's Fitness Corner, and we can talk about
Otis,
are we going to talk about
Rhabdo? Are we going to talk about Rhabdo? Because literally, so I watched this with my wife, and the minute this guy was like, "Yeah, I've been really sore," I was like, we both said instantaneously, rhabdo. He has rhabdo, and he has no idea what that is. And for folks at home who
I don't.
Are trying to understand what rhabdo is, I would recommend watching this pilot. This pilot does one of the greatest examples of why like post like care recovery after a any gigantic athletic event, even a regular workout that you might push yourself, is extremely important, because if you build up potassium, you are going to be in a big trouble, bad time, and you are probably going to need to go to a hospital, if not the chance of dying. Rhabdomyolysis is basically your muscle is eating away at itself.
Christ.
Muscle going in through your bloodstream into your heart is a big bad time. So don't do that. Like, take time, recover.
But what I liked about Otis's case in particular is that it does that medical drama thing of, we've explored all options. He's crashing again. Dr. Robbie has an idea. Someone says, if you're wrong, he'll die. And then he does it anyways, and it works. And like, it plays these beats so efficiently and so effectively. And it's a very simple case that delves into a larger mystery as the episode progresses, and then we end it with like the highest stakes, people yelling at each other, and Dr. Robbie just coming in and saying, I'm doing it anyway, and it works. And yeah, like, have I seen that before? Did we talk about that? We discussed House and Grays. Yes. Does it make it less interesting? No.
Yeah. For myself, I think we're doing discredit to this pilot if we don't talk about the effects that were used to do one of the most gruesome things I've ever seen in the degloving. And unlike Max,
boy.
I knew what this was. When they said, oh, we got it degloved, I was like, oh boy, can't wait to see how they've done
Max,
this.
Folks at home, nothing to do with mittens, just letting you know now.
I'm shocked as someone who wears a wedding ring every day has not heard this phrase before.
Yeah. I think that if you are wondering what the accessory is in degloving, it's your skin. That's and imagine if you just took that off like a glove. I love this scene because I think it does such a good job of giving us a few different fun things as writers, right? We get to see a team of doctors working together to solve a problem that does have life or death consequences associated with it, but also by adding a compound fracture in, we get to see multiple professionals all in together. And I know we're squirming, but then we get the payoff of seeing a medical student pass out right in front of us, right?
Bam.
And like in this instant moment that was just perfect.
Yep.
It was just so well acted. But my personal favorite case of the week was our mysterious child who wouldn't wake up. When I saw that, I saw this was I want to congratulate the show, because they could have just been like, everything's an emergency, everything's a nightmare, nobody knows what's happening. Totally. And then one of the writers was like, what if we drugged a kid and made it really funny, and then also saw a marriage potentially be doomed? And I love that scene, because I think that it gave the audience permission to giggle. It gave the audience permission to take a sigh of relief, because you're not worried about a kid dying mysteriously. And that was it was just such a necessary thing, but so well done, that I was like, okay, there's going to be hopefully every week a laugh, a case that is just full of laughs, like a man getting an enema and shitting into a pail.
It's hard to top kid getting absolutely zooted on weed gummies.
Yeah.
What you got, Max?
But this is just like the whole thing that we keep coming back to, which is that it would have been so easy to say, oh, it's redacted 90s NBC medical drama meets 24, and we're foot on the gas, and we're just going to like exhaust you by the finish line. But no, it is this up and down. It's this dance. It's this music that they do where when it gets super real, someone's cell phone goes off in the room.
Yep.
When it gets really intense, we're rushing around. We cut to a room where a guy's trying so hard to defecate and move his bowels into a pan. When it feels like it's just absolutely getting to you again, we have this kid, Tyler, who's absolutely on Mars, and the show just knows when to breathe, and it knows how to pace it so that when you do get to that final push at the end, when you get to that big reveal that closes this episode, you have like the capacity to say, I'm ready for what's next.
Yeah.
I'm like recharged to hit that last
Yes.
emotional high. And I think that is so effective to not exhaust me before that big finish.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about this ending of this pilot, right? Because we do get this reveal of, oh, something is happening outside of the hospital. And while we want to be attached to that case, we can't. And we have this moment of a flashback that almost resembles PTSD in that moment, and shows us a little bit more of potentially a reveal of why this mentor died, as we are taken back to what appears to be 2020 and a pandemic where everyone is in hazmat suits. And
Did I miss that? When did that happen?
that was part of this flashback, bud.
No, I mean in 2020. I was just
and I mean, it does sort of leave us with this cliffhanger reveal, and Max, you sort of talked about that pacing portion of it. Were you left on a cliff? Were you wondering what is going to happen next?
Me?
Oh,
Yeah, you.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you're
I've
Max
established this. Yes. The Pit makes you feel like you are watching an overall arc of a story while still being standalone. It makes you want to hit next episode while also not leaving stones unturned and like things untied. It puts bows on things while still making you ready for what's next. It is classic TV drama, which I feel like is lacking right now, especially at this like big streamer level, and it does make me feel excited in a way that a lot of shows don't. And I think you're seeing a lot of people online talking about this in Paradise kind of in the same breath, in that they feel like things from 20 years ago, complimentary, because they know when to be serious, they know when to be silly, they know how to have these standalone moments while also being part of a bigger story overall. And they're both things that I think are worth your time.
Yeah, I think it does end on a very good note where you like. There's nothing about this show that makes me want to know less about Noah Wale. Like his character is extremely capable, extremely quick thinking, is able to handle so much at one time. But the fact that, like, you know, I remember vividly when I talked to my friend who is a cardiologist, the week that more and more COVID cases started hitting New York City hospitals. And the moment he told me that they'd converted his cardiology wing to a COVID triage room, I was like, oh, this is worse than we could have possibly imagined. This is like, I'm not going to see my friends for a long time. Like, this is not like a 2 weeks and we can go back outside thing. It was like people wanted, or I guess were optimistic about. It was horrifying. And it's interesting that we get to see that, because like, I know the COVID season of Grey's Anatomy was very like controversial in the sense that like maybe people didn't want to watch it. Maybe people wanted a little bit more escapism. But the fact that we're going to dive into it is, I don't know. It makes it feel very real. I actually had a different reaction to the end of the episode where I was like, I feel fucking exhausted and I cannot possibly imagine hitting next episode.
Well, I want to speak to that, Rich, and that is the end of this pilot. But before we talk about things that we loved or wait a minute moments, I want to talk about the idea of how HBO released this, because originally they released this as the first 2 episodes were released on Max, and then they started releasing it 1 episode per week. And I think this falls into that unique category of shows that should be given a week in between, because Max, you hit that point as well. You're nuts if you're binging. If you are watching 15 hours of this and going through a shift, holy shit. I have so many questions for you. One is, what's your blood pressure like? Because boy, oh boy, you are suffering from hypertension and we need to get you into the pit.
Yeah.
But Max, I mean, you talked about it a little bit. How do you feel about TV like this that is sort of really welcoming the idea of take the week, digest, recover, and then get anxiety again?
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think it's the way that it should be. I think that we should want to gather around the proverbial water cooler and discuss things. The Pit is going off on social media. Like, so much of my TikTok, so much of my Twitter feed are people who are fully Pit pilled. And I think it's because we can take 6 days until it's Thursday again.
Yep.
And like, assuming, you watch on Thursday, I'm not counting Thursday because it airs Thursday. I did the math right. Shut up. Because you have time to build that hype. HBO's always been the best about this. HBO's Sunday nights have always been a hallmark, but they've also been these big prestige-y things. And to have something that drops in the middle of the week on Thursdays, where especially you then get to discuss it on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they're being so smart about it.
Yep.
And I think that this show could exist on HBO. It could exist just on Max, but it could also move to a Warner Brothers greater Max property and be on like TNT in the middle of the afternoon. And I'd watch the replay of it.
100%.
It just feels like it's set up to be whatever you want it to be.
I do think that this is... I am pretty excited about the episodic nature. I'm sorry, the serial, regular TV styled nature of how things are getting like prestige TV is getting released right now. I've never had so much like appointment television as I do right now since Netflix came out, since Netflix started like really hitting it. Like, it was a big deal for me when during the pandemic, the new episode of The Last Dance would come out. That was like the only thing that I had. And then eventually Ted Lasso, then eventually Severance and stuff like that. But it was like right now between like Paradise and this and Severance and I mean, for me, RuPaul's Drag Race and like a couple other stuff, a couple other things like, it's all episodic for me right now. It's all like, oh, I have this comes out Thursday, this comes out Tuesday, this comes out Friday. It's like I need to. They have really figured out how to hook me.
Well, gentlemen, I'd love to say that nature is healing. We've gone to the binge valley and we're coming back into the episodic nature.
Make us
and
wait.
Paradise.
Edge
well,
us.
That is our pilot, but let's talk a little bit more about things that we loved, things that you want to give a little bit more shine. And I do want to give just all the credit in the world to the visual effects team who worked on this. Like,
right.
Holy shit, that takes a lot of work, and not to mention the lighting and the visual like palette that they gave us, because like you're so used to in medical shows being like everything's clean, everything's sanitary and like almost angelic with the lighting. Nope, we're down and dirty and like it's gonna get gross, and I really like that. And I think that you gotta, there's a vibe and an energy that is brought by that sort of visual, and it puts you into this world. Totally. Max, I'm curious about you.
Well, unfortunately, in discussing the show for the last 45 minutes with Yids guys, every single point that I said I was going to save for wait a minute or things I loved, I got too excited and tagged onto a conversation we already had. So I burnt through every single talking point that I would have used for this segment. It's safe to say the only thing I've been prescribed is the Pitt pill.
Oh, my God. Rich, what about yourself?
I mean, I gotta really just give it up for the pacing. What I can compare this show to, it feels like, and this is not a derogatory thing, it feels like a DJ wrote it, where it's just like you can feel like the BPMs coming up and up and up and up, and then you get that moment of dropout where you have like a moment of relief or your focus is shifted, and then up and up and up and up again. And then, I mean, this entire show is just like a pressure cooker, and it is. You get the same feeling as like watching The Bear in like the most intense sequences, I think, of just like, oh man, they got to really perform. They got to perform now. It has to. They have to figure this out now. Someone's gonna die, and then you get air let out of the balloon.
Speaking of DJs, the music on the show is awesome. Like I love the Starbucks rock of it all, but it's really great. Well, let's quickly talk about wait a minute moments. I'm just gonna quickly start. Everyone's way too pretty on this show. There's way too much beautiful people in this hospital room. I need a little bit of look diversity. Throw in a couple threes and fours so I feel at home.
Hey
Rich,
HBO, why are all these patients so hot?
why is the man shitting into a pail really good looking?
Holy
Rich,
Christ.
what about yourself?
I mean, for me, I just like this is just a personal thing. I can't handle the viscera of being in a hospital, and that's just like it really. I did really have my eyes closed for about like a quarter of the pilot, just because like I knew something was happening. Can't handle it.
Podcast
That's
style.
100% just me.
Max, what about yourself?
Human flesh. I really wish I knew what degloving was before I watched this episode.
Well, we do have one more question. It is an in-flight question. This week's in-flight question comes from Diana in Florida. And Diana asked, the Pit is based on a hospital in Pittsburgh. What is another city or town that you would want to see of this vein? And would it stay a drama? So I'm asking you two, is there a town, city, place that you want a medical drama or maybe a different type of show based off of just the name? And would it stay a drama?
Yes.
Ooh. What's the hospital with the goofiest injuries imaginable is what you're asking us?
I know it.
All right, Rich, lead us off.
All right, it's the hospital. It's the hospital or medical area of Disney World. So it's people having Disney related incidents, and they just handle everything in there. So Orlando.
Oh God, Max, what about yourself?
I mean, Rich has nailed it on the head. We already have Dr. Odyssey, which is doing medical dramas on cruise ships.
Boy, I can't wait
need
till we
to
do
see
that
the
one.
medical team at a theme park now. I don't have a better answer than Rich.
And personally, I am going with Accident Maryland in a 911 style show where it's just a small town in Maryland, and
It's called Accident.
It's called Accident in Maryland, and what a small town like 911 scale show where it's just like, oh no, there's a cat up a tree, and like we just see people deal with that. Like A plus, give it
If
to
I
me.
want to see accidents in Maryland, I'll go to Ocean Beach.
Well, Diana, thank you so much for that in-flight question. We'll talk a little bit more at the end of the show about how. Hey, TV Pilots license listeners and frequent flyers. Before we get to Rich's game of the week, this is editing, Jeff. You can tell by my hair and just my overall demeanor, but editing Jeff is here to tell you we actually were able to, after the podcast was recorded, have an interview with a doctor, a real live doctor by the name of Raul Flores. And Rich decided to interview Raul with the idea of just how accurate is the Pit. So I hope you guys enjoy this.
Sure.
Yeah, the actually the first conversation you and I have ever had together was about Scrubs and talking about how you felt Scrubs depicted an actual like doctor and nursing staff and like the interrelations and all that and like the gallows humor and everything.
Yeah, it's like a warm depiction. That show makes me feel like warm and fuzzy inside, and I think it does a really good job of capturing the arc from like intern to like slightly more mature doctor, and like you learn all the wistfulness of the job and everything, but like does it like with the humor that we all need.
For sure.
Great show.
Um so okay, all right. Who the hell are you and what is your job?
Mm. So I am Raul Flores. I'm a physician. And specifically, I'm a sub specialist. I'm a heart failure and cardiac transplant cardiologist. I do the medical side. common misconception. People think I'm a surgeon, but I'm actually like the medical doctor who's tasked with diagnosing, preventing, managing, tracking progression of people with heart failure in both the acute setting, where people are coming in like in the critical care unit, or like in the like less acute setting where they're coming in through the clinic. I try to connect them through, transplant centers. I am frequently on transplant committees where we're deciding like who is a good candidate for a heart transplant or a pump called an LVAD or things like that. And then I also serve as an attending in the cardiac critical care unit in New Jersey.
That is a
Um,
lot.
so wide range of acuity, but I would say my favorite place of being is the cardiac critical care unit where things are fast paced, boom boom
Absolutely.
boom,
Okay.
very emergent, a lot
So
of high stakes decision making.
so when you're watching a medical TV show, do you think it is are you looking for entertainment? Are you looking for realism or like escapism? Like do you want something that's a completely different experience? Do you want Doctor House?
Yeah, I mean what I'm looking for is like entertainment is definitely key there, but some element of realism is important. Like Grey's Anatomy lost me in season 3 when Izzy Stevens went out and resuscitated a deer.
What?
Uh, like that's when they lost me.
Oh my god.
Um, but I mean, great show otherwise. But
Sure.
like House, while being completely esoteric in terms of like how the different physicians are tasked with different things in the hospital, like you don't know what kind of specialist anyone is there. At least their medical reasoning and the conditions that they're ruling in and out, that's accurate.
Okay.
So that's fun. So like they're coming up with a creative solution. I mean, as a specialist, I think we're always looking at like in our clinical life for the zebras. Like they always see, like, if you hear cloves, it's horses
Yes.
typically, but like we're always waiting for a zebra to show up.
Oh, okay.
Like something hard, something exotic, something difficult to manage, to really test your mettle as a doctor and like test your diagnostic skill. So when you see the physicians on the TV, like kind of like coming up with the rare diagnosis, or like making like the little, oh look, I just noticed the way that their finger twitched in that way,
Oh.
and then and I think it's this now, and then they're right. Like that's the rush. Like that's the best thing. Like I'm not a surgeon. I can't cut people open or actually do anything. I just can tell people what's wrong. So
Sure.
like if I can figure out what's wrong through something that no one else can notice, like that's the fun thing.
Ooh.
So seeing that on TV, that's what I'm looking for.
Does that get to happen a lot, like in your job? Does that like do you get the like high fives down the hallway moment or whatever?
It's something that happens but in slower motion.
Okay.
Like, a lot of times I will pick up on a subtlety and work it up aggressively. But like if I'm in the clinic, like, okay, maybe I'll see that test result in like a month
Okay.
or
Yeah.
something. And like in the critical care unit, you can pick up on things like on a more fast-paced scale. Like I recently had a good a good pickup where like, everyone's leaving the room and then I heard the patient say like one little thing and it was like, wait, no, tell me more about that.
Oh, that's what
And then
TV
we
dreams are
quickly
made of.
realized, yeah, and then like, we quickly realized like something terrible was happening and we very narrowly avoided him being like a paraplegic.
Oh my god.
So it was very satisfying moment. But yeah,
Massive
so it
stakes.
it it, it happens, but it's like not an everyday thing.
I gotcha. Um, Watching the pit, and I think you mentioned that you're like caught up with it, like you've watched everything
Yeah.
up till like this week. How well of a job do you think that they do, and how well of a job do you think like Noah Wile and the like nursing staff and all that like do to portray an emergency room or just like a hospital in general?
Yeah, I mean, this is bar none like the most accurate
Wow.
medical drama I have ever seen on television.
Holy shit.
Like they I mean, to qualify things a little bit from my perspective, like I'm not an emergency room physician, but I
Hmm.
have rotated through the emergency department through my internal medicine training. If I hadn't been a heart failure cardiologist, I was seriously looking at emergency medicine. So because just like most millennials, I have like ADD, and like emergency medicine is like custom built for someone with ADD. Um, and you look at the show and like you think there's no way there can be that many emergencies happening at once. And like if you're in a busy metropolitan center,
Yeah,
it is. It
yeah.
is that bad. The personalities that are portrayed, uh, you know, pretty accurate.
Okay.
Like there's definitely a bit of a hero complex with most action-oriented physicians, like I think the higher acuity of problems that you deal with, the little bit more of like a savior hero complex is at play, and that's on full display in there. Um, the nurses are rough and tumble.
Sure.
The physicians are all traumatized because we are.
Yep.
Like, I've definitely gotten super activated watching that show.
Oh man.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we just covered the pilot alone, and the fact that it ended with the cliffhanger of like being inside that that
Mm,
COVID like sectioned emergency room. That was overwhelming. Like that was. I thought about you immediately because when
yeah.
you and I talked March 14th of 2020 or whatever, and said, "Hey,
Yeah.
they're turning my entire cardiology room into a COVID triage center." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I'm not going to see the
Yeah.
outside for a while."
Yeah. I'm really glad. So shows like this make me really happy that they're doing well,
Oh, good.
because this is the best way that I can show my friends, my partner, my family, like what the tension feels like in the hospital,
That's awesome.
like what the decision making's like, how, bad of a freak out you can have after like a bad case. Because like this show does tension really well. It almost reminds me like The Bear.
Yes.
Like, it's just like fast paced, high anxiety, it's loud, there's something blaring, like they might as well be yelling corner like every time they're like walking into another room. But yeah, to see Noah Wiley's character like grapple with, the severity of and the trauma of what they're seeing
Of
in
course.
front of them. And then to be quickly snapped up into another emergency and just, there's no time to even acknowledge it.
Oh my God.
That's exactly how I am
Yeah.
in my own job, especially in the critical care unit, where we're crashing one person onto like mechanical circulatory support because their heart's not pumping, so we have to put in a machine, and then this one is on another machine, and this machine's having a complication.
Oh
Like
my God.
it's um, you know, it's a lot of emergent snaps, like decision making, that puts a lot of stress on you, but you just keep plowing through it. And so the show does it really well. And on top of that, like, not to go on too long, but they're very medically accurate.
Oh yeah.
Like when they're doing a procedure and it's a little gruesome, that's exactly what I'm doing.
Whoa.
Like, or seeing. These are really accurately depicted and described procedures. As a matter of fact, like several of my doctor friends, I hear from each of the specialties every couple of weeks, because like every week they'll describe like a different specialty's like emergency room procedure.
Oh wow.
And like they'll be like, "Oh, did you see they did a lateral canthotomy?" Or like, "Did you see like they put someone on ECMO?" And this had a really complicated Crike situation, and like they're all really impressed by the
Yeah.
medical accuracy of it. To the point that like, when my specialty came up on one of the episodes, I was like, "Oh, they haven't done this thing yet. They're not, they're gonna miss it." And then like the thing happens,
No
no
way.
spoilers, and it's described and depicted like 100% well, like very
God.
accurate. I was very happy to see it.
They must have a huge team of doctors like as consultants for this, because that is, I mean, it is so easy to bypass stuff like that
Yeah.
just to like the budget for this for each episode is around like 4 million or something like that. I have to imagine a lot of that goes to like the consulting and the writing and doing the little set decoration to make it look like an actual, like, this is what is really happening. This is what it would look like if you were that person in the ER. That's really cool. I mean, it's given me more excitement to watch it, even though I cannot handle blood or anything at all.
Yeah. Well, it's not just blood. There's plenty of like pee
Sure.
and like other substances too. And
Sure.
I think you'll have a lot of variety to contend with. They do have a running gag for one of the characters that's like always sprayed with something on
No.
each episode, and it's fantastic.
Oh my god.
So and so like that speaks to like the levity of the whole place too. I mean,
For sure.
like for it's such a twisted, mishmash of like agony and yelling and then laughter and then like crying and like and then you just sometimes you get like a bunch of like piss on you, you know, and
And then
like
you
you're
gotta
just like,
laugh.
well, this is yeah,
I love that.
so it is just like the melting pot of humanity on that show, and it's so well done. I'm such a fan.
That's so cool. I can't wait to watch more now. Dr. Raul Flores, thank you so much for coming on TVPL. Thanks
Yeah,
for being our chief medical examiner.
yeah. Anytime.
But quick history of the show. This show is currently in progress in its season. It is only 13 episodes into a 15 episode season.
No, 15 season run. Let's go.
Season run. And season 2 has been greenlit, and that will be coming in January of 2026. Yeah, there's folks. If you're listening to this and being
Noah
like, why
Wale
is this
naming his
history
second
section
boat
so
Lorazepam.
short? This show came out 2 months ago, so I don't really have much. I do want to say that this, as Max and we have been referencing, this show is under litigation, and that is ongoing. And no, we will not update this podcast once the litigation is done. But yeah, that is the history of this show as it currently stands, and I hope it is a little bit more verbose. Maybe when we do a debrief on the show in the future. But that is the history. Rich, it is time for your game of the week.
Well, let's talk about the history of medical TV shows in general. All right, so the first serialized medical drama, according to the research that I did, from the time was called Dr. Kildare, a film series that starred a rotation of actors playing Dr. Kildare, kind of like James Bond or Doctor Who. But the other doctor that they played alongside was a member of which family acting dynasty? Was it the Clooneys, the Bridges, the Fondas, or the Barrymores?
I'm going to say the Clooneys.
Yeah, I was going to say the Clooneys as well.
It is not. It's the Barrymores. It was Leonard Barrymore, I think. No, Lionel Barrymore. That's what it was. Also, Barrymores can trace their acting roots back to London in the mid 1800s. Isn't that crazy? All right. MASH, the medical drama and comedy set in a surgical unit during the Korean War, and also a handheld game to figure out your future life with your crush, had its finale in 1983, a 2-hour and 30-minute episode titled Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen. It was the largest viewing audience of any TV program until it was unseated by a Super Bowl won by which team? A, Indianapolis Colts. B, New Orleans Saints. C, New England Patriots. D, New York Giants.
I'm going to say that it is a C, New England Patriots.
I'm going to say it was the... did you say the New Orleans Saints?
I did.
Okay, I'm going to say the New Orleans Saints.
Wow, Jeff, on the fucking nose. New Orleans Saints. It was Super Bowl, whatever.
It was
2010.
It was 2010, yeah.
Yeah.
When they beat the Colts.
I'm stunned at how many people watched that Super Bowl. I don't know where the ratings suddenly came from, but it was like unbelievable. If you really want to get nitpicky about it, it was unseated by the Michael Jackson halftime show, but that was people tuning in just for the halftime show, so it didn't count.
Show. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for playing History of Medical TV shows.
Well, Rich, thank you so much for your game of the week. Our flight is coming to a land, gentlemen, but I have 2 questions before we go. And the first is, We all saw our blood pressure rise. We all saw a leg be degloved. But would we like to all watch episode 2 of this pilot? And would you like to watch episode 2 of this show based off of the pilot? And secondly, episodic TV, man. It is here. We're seeing instances of it. We're seeing streamers do it. But do we want to see more of it? The show's already been considered for season 2 and greenlit for season 2. But do you think it should be episodic, or maybe just throw all of those on Max at the same time and say fuck it? So, Rich, I'm gonna kick it off with you.
Okay, so I am watching episode 2, but giving it a week, and they should. And then if I think they should be greenlit for more. Clearly, there is a unceasing appetite for this. I think it is really it's proven, and I think the show does it very well. I really like the fact that it is in real time, or quote unquote real time, and I think that's what makes it stand out from the others.
Max?
Do Yins really need to ask me this? Yes, I'm absolutely going to keep watching The Pitt. And yes, we need to see episodic standalone TV. We need to see these dramas. They work. They could be successful. I think the biggest example is if you take the other major procedural thing that premiered on a streamer this year. You have On Call from Dick Wolf on Amazon Prime that dropped all of its episodes on the exact same day, pretty much the exact same time that this show aired with The Pitt. One of these shows is the talk of the town 2.5 months later. One of them has already faded into irrelevancy and might get covered on this podcast at the end of the year.
Yeah.
There is a method to this. It works. Trust that audiences will come and build a following over time, that they will want to tune in. Drop shit weekly.
Yeah, and I'll follow up. I definitely will watch more of this show. I want to see what hour 14 and 15 of a 15-hour shift does to a human being, because I think it is going to be insane, and I want to see that build up on the mental status of a human.
That's
not
such
out of a sadistic
such an interesting
way,
acting challenge too.
but I want to see that idea of how did they do this, and I want to learn more. I want to see what gross shit they do, in all honesty, because
I don't.
There's film. I've been so into filming techniques recently that I'm just like, what are you going to do that's going to make me say wow? As far as episodic TV, you're seeing a lot more streamers start to pick up and figure out that it's more profitable to do episodic TV as well. And I'll point towards another Amazon Prime show of Invincible, which is only shown one episode at a
Jeff
time.
mentioned Invincible this week, Drake.
Yep. So I think that there's something to it, and I hope we see more of it. But, gentlemen, that is our flight. And before we go, I want to make sure that folks can find you. Rich, where can folks find you?
Well, my name is Rich. I'm not a doctor, but I watch one on TV. And you can find me on Instagram at Damn That's Rich. You can find original sketch comedy from Max and myself on TikTok and Instagram at Dadwagon Comedy.
Max?
You can catch me finding you $30,000 for a kidney and on all things social media at Maxwell Singh.
And you can find me finna being in the pit, but if you're looking for me, Jesus, if you're looking for me on social media, you can find me at Run Jeff Run. If you're looking for the TV Pilot's License, you can watch our smiling faces on YouTube, listen to us anywhere you find podcasts, and also find us on almost all social media platforms. If you have a question about the show or for our next episode, you can always go to tvpilotslicense.com and submit that in-flight question. You can also shoot us a text or leave us a voicemail at 213-290-1713. Make sure to watch out for sneak previews of some of the stuff that we have coming up, including next week we're going to be talking about Lethal Weapon. But with the plane landed, the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you soon. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies and your fingers on the dial.
Prep the crash cart.
Black and yellow, black and yellow, black
God.
and yellow, black and yellow.